Hi, I'm Emily from Creativity and Company, and I'm here with another art session. Today we'll be doing some more marker art. You can do it as sort of an art journaling exercise or just something, sort of make your own coloring page type of art. I'm working on 250 gram multimedia paper. I'm using Tombow markers, which of course you can use whatever kind you like. And you can work on single sheets like I do, or you can work in your art journal. Just remember that with these kind of markers, they tend to fade in the sunlight. So you'll either want to save them in like some folder or in a book, whichever you prefer. So let's get started. I have my selection of different marker colors pulled out. These will be available in a PDF that I'll show you the link to at the end, which will include this black and white drawing that you can use or sort of use parts of, and the color finish. So let's get started. I'll just start coloring this big flower with a very light color. I usually work light to dark. Next, with another shade that's just a bit darker, I'll go around each petal. Now with another darker shade, I'll just trying to do a little bit less area with these as I go through my color series. And finally, my final darkest shade. It's kind of like a orangey red. Okay, now I'll just take my light shade and sort of pull these colors out, making a sort of nice gradient. I'll avoid coloring too much over the lightest areas. I don't want to over darken those. I want to keep things fairly light. You can wipe off your tip if it gets too much of the dark on it, and maybe just add a little bit more color up there. You can also use this transparent color that come with a Tombow set of markers too if you want. I like to just use the lightest shade. That's fine to me. I think I'll go back and add just a bit of my second lightest shade in here. My goal is just to create a nice sort of color gradient over the shape of this. So I might do just a little more. This is sort of a back and forth till you're happy. And I'll just bring in a small amount more of my dark shade down at the bottom. So for the inner petal, wait, see, I smeared my colors a little. I will do a yellow series. This is gonna be a little bit darker than this, so I'm not that worried about this color smearing, mixing in a little. It's fine. I'll add my next darker shade of yellow. It doesn't go quite out so far into the petal. And then the next shade. Actually, this is my darkest shade I have with me today, but it's alright. I think I'm just gonna add a touch of red down there too, just a little bit. So it's not quite so like brownish. You can feel free to experiment with your own color series. I mean, I'm just showing you how I do this and some possibilities, but there's many, many more. Okay. Yeah. I'll leave that for now. I think that's fine. And so I'm gonna do the 6 petal flower down here in the corner. It's pretty much the same sort of routine. Color in with light first. And then my next shade, we'll just bring that out a bit, not quite as far into the petal. And the next shade, same thing. And finally my red, I just want it down on the bottom a little bit. And actually, I think for this, I would just like to add a bit of yellow in there. Just warm it up a bit. Okay, to my light shade, I'm just gonna pull out all these colors so they blend together. And once again, I never go all the way into the petal because I really like keeping that light. Okay, I've got a slightly darker shade of red even because I really want just that little bit of deep contrast here in the center area. So I just put a little bit down at the bottom. And I think I'll spread it out with my second darkest shade of orange. Just pull it a little. It's quite wet now on my paper with the ink, so it tends to shred very easily. It doesn't really help to use watercolor paper, heavier paper like watercolor when you have so much wetness. I found it shreds still the same, so I don't let it bother me too much. It's all okay. If you let it dry, you can brush away some of the shreds, but don't try to brush them when it's still wet because it will smear. So I'll put just a tiny bit of this red over here. So I'll pull it out just a bit too. Just a bit. I just really like the sort of gradients. They're one of my favorite things to paint. For these other flowers, I'm switching to blue shades. I have some blues. Okay, I have a series of blues. Yeah, they're kind of a cooler blue, but I decided to warm it up with a little bit of sort of turquoise type of blue. I'll use those for the inner kind of flower petal area there. But first I'll start with this sort of blue and just paint around all my petals. I want these to stay fairly light. On the edges anyway, so I'm not going to bring my color out too far at all on these. Okay, I'm going back to my lightest shade of blue and just pulling those out. Avoiding pulling it too far into my light area. Okay. I will just add a touch of the my very dark or super dark blue just at the bottom. I really don't want this blue too far in. I just want a little hint of super contrast down there, super darkness. And I'll just mix it in a little bit. I won't even try to pull it all the way out to the edge or anything, just so it's not too stuck in one place. Okay, then I want my sort of inner petal to be a little bit more, I'm keeping this light too, with slightly more turquoisey type of coloring. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful not to grab in that dark blue down there. These colors will gladly spread themselves like that. So easy. So I'll just add a little bit more of a darker turquoise in there. So there. I might mix that in just a hint there to smooth out that edge. For this internal flower, I think I'll just use my turquoisey shades the same way again. They're so small, they sort of end up almost like one color field anyways. And I'm doing these centers here. Both of these centers will be yellow. It's sort of my favorite color to use as centers. But I like to still make them a bit of a gradient, so I'll just go through my yellow series. All the way to the darkest. Will just be on the very edge. And for this one, I'll just mix that in, pull a little bit. Try to soften that edge. I think I'll add just a tiny bit of darker turquoise at the bottom, since my petal ended up, I lost some of the lightness up there, so. Yeah, that's what you can do. It's really hard when you lost your lightness. You can't really get it back, but you can make it a little bit darker in places to make up for it. And I'll just put a tiny bit of this darkness down here too. Wait, yeah, it bled just a touch there. I think I will, yeah. I don't know if I'm making it worse, but probably. That's okay. Sometimes, yeah, it's better to, if you're really worried about this bleeding, to just let it dry. Give it a couple minutes of drying time while you work on a different area. I'm just adding a touch more dark red down here. Sometimes when you pull out the shade so much, you lose a little bit of that. But I can't help it. I still want to like spread it a little bit. Okay. Yeah. This flower will have just a bit more of a turquoise kind of look to it. So I'll take my next shade of turquoise, and then I'll do my darkest turquoise down there. So I want to spread these a little bit, so I'll just do that. Just a little. It won't even get close to the outside edge. Yeah, this flower ended up a little bit funky in the center. You can make your own flower centers a bit better, maybe. I think I do a lot of embroidery, so I get a little inspired by the way stitches look as on flowers, but it doesn't always translate to pencil that well. So. But you know, what I realized, it's quite nice actually to make things not so perfect. I know you're tempted, I'm tempted. Squares, neat lines, everything even, but it adds a lot of character just being a little bit kind of funky and whimsical. Whimsy. People really like it. It looks, I don't know, it just looks more interesting. Okay, that brought out all my darker shades a little bit too far, but that's good. Now, next are my sort of little berry things. These I will make yellow. They're gonna be yellow tones. So I'll start with some bit of very light yellow. You can just, well, there's no real like light source on my flowers. It's just sort of fantasy shading, so don't worry about that. But I do like to make the light and dark on the same side for all of them. Okay, now for my next darkest shade. Actually, I think I messed up my shades. Okay, so I just want a little little bit of darkness on the very edge. You can see I chose quite a brownish yellow, so I might add I just want to add a hint of orange in there. That's what I'll do here, in between this sort of dark and medium orange yellows. With my second lightest orange. And then so I'll come over here to my light and I'll just gently blend this a little. I won't even try to avoid the lightest edge of my berry. Yeah, then I really want this a bit darker on the edge, so I think I'll use a little bit of orange in there to, yeah. And I'll add just a touch of this kind of brownish yellow in there too. Yeah, I'll save these stems will be green, so I'll wait till I start working with the green. Okay, next onto my leaves and such. I'll do a mix that's sort of yellows and greens. I'll start with the sort of these, I don't know, ferny kind of leaves. Then next darker shade. Yeah, my next darker shade is actually quite similar. I thought they should be a bit different, but that's okay. This is a bit darker. And I'll put some of this sort of brownish kind of yellow right along the edge, not too much at all. I really don't want my leaf to be like overly brown. And I'll blend these just a little bit along that edge. I won't go over the yellow because it will darken it if you add more ink. It often does, depending on the color, but I don't really want more dark on there. On the edge, that is. Right, I really like adding just a touch of green to these too to help spread out the green. So I have a sort of yellowy kind of green. I'll just add a little, especially to the darker areas of the leaf, just enough so you can see it. I'm going to move on to the leaves and stems and whatnot. Before I do that though, actually this is, I don't know if it's a flower or a leaf, sort of. Not full grown, whatever it is, so you can't quite tell. But I want it to be kind of in my yellow-orange family here, so. Instead of, I won't put brown in there quite yet. I'd rather put a little bit of oranginess in there instead. Orangey redness. Okay, I'll just blend it a little. Alright, like that. Now to my yellows, my greens, sorry. Well, I have two kinds of greens. I have a kind of a bluer green and a yellower green for this, since might be interesting. But I like to do some leaves that are mostly yellow, just for variety, but for this I have two shades of green, so that'll keep it more interesting too. So I'll start with the leaves, and then I'll move to the stems. And I'll just do part of the leaf yellow. This one though, these inner bits of leaves will be yellow eventually. I'll come back to that. I usually like to do the outside first. Okay, so I'm gonna you can choose how you want it. Some I'll do with the yellowy kind of green, and some I'll do with the bluer style of green. And then I'll have probably a few of the smaller ones will just be yellow. So you can choose how you want it. I'm just doing this sort of random choice, I think. Yeah, let me do the yellow ones that are mostly yellow first, otherwise I'll forget. I'll make them all green. Go back to my light yellow to blend them a little. Back to my greens. I'll just add a touch of green to those to help darken the edge, because this one ended up a little uniform. But so I'm on my second shade of sort of yellow green. It's a bit darker. Right now for a bit of quite dark green on there. Let's do a little along the bottom and the edge. You can add how much you want and the way you want. So I'll go back to my lighter green and just start blending these out. I'll avoid my yellow area as much as I can. I just want... I will go back and blend that edge with the yellow, because my green ends up a bit like too dark to get a nice blend. Okay, back to my light yellow. I'll just blend the edges of this green yellow edge, soften it just a little, so we get that gradient effect. And here, if you want to add a little bit of more dark to the bottom, or wait, that's very dark. Okay, now I'm switching for now to my sort of more blue-green type of shading. And I'll do these leaves that I've left. It's only a few now. Mix my next shade of green. Before I add anything darker, I'll go ahead and blend these a little. Okay, yeah, instead of adding a darker green, I think I'll leave those, and I'll do this. First I'll do this yellow, inner yellow area with my series of yellow colors. Same series. Just blend that out a little. This one didn't get any of the dark. And I think I'll add just a touch of orange again too. Okay, now on to stems and things. Yeah, I always do them, usually I do them, well, always usually, with yellow first. And this kind of part of the stem, I often bring in some of the flower color too on that, just to make it a little more interesting. So I'll do these two, my berry stems. I think some I'll do with this yellow or green. I think I'll do this one. I'll do the same thing. I'll just bring in my green on parts of it. And then move to the darker green. Try on this, it's a little bit small in space, but I'll try to get that same kind of gradient effect. And I like to bring in just a little bit of the flower color down here. This is already quite dark, but that's okay. I'll blend it in a little. I think it's quite kind of a nice effect. It's almost like sort of a reflected light from the flower. And I'll have my dark green here. I like to do that along the edge a bit. And the same here. I'll use my light to spread that out over this. Okay, one thing you can do if you feel like a little adventurous and bold is to bring one of these sort of complementary, contrasting colors in there and add a little. It darkens it and it adds sort of an interesting shade too. You may not. I would avoid adding too much though. That's my advice, because some of my paintings I've added entirely too much. It looks a little weird. It doesn't turn out well because it just makes kind of a brown, but a little bit is okay in your darker areas. So I'll do these other two with a green or bluer type of green. Maybe these. Yeah, I think I'll match the flower they're on. I mean, this is just fantasy, so these will be a bit yellower green, and those are the bluer. Add a bit of darker shade. My dark green. One of my darker greens, that is. I'll just add a little bit of this blue green here too. It really doesn't matter the way you use your greens. You can mix them around. Try adding a little, try mixing them in sort of a fun way. And don't make them all the same. Then just blend a bit. And you can do the same with one of your blue shades. Just, add like a little bit to the green, for example. Maybe I will on these sleeves too. Maybe I'll even do it on this sleeve. Just try some different ways of using the colors. And then I just blend a little. Blend on my stems. Yeah, I want this one to have some darkness on, a little bit more darkness, so this is with my turquoise blue, I'm adding some darkness. And I almost always blend that in. And this, I forgot this, I want this a little bit of green in there and a touch of blue. Now for my sort of vine, I call them swinging vines. Yeah, I do the same thing. I like to start with a bit of yellow. I forgot these stems. I'll come back and get those momentarily. I just put a little yellow along the edge. It's not necessarily the color, the whole thing, but you could if you wanted. And then I'll take my lightest sort of bluer green and color next to the yellow. Now instead of going for a darker shade of green, I'll grab my blue, I think. And I'm taking a little bit of my darker blue just along the edge. First I'll start with yellow and just, yeah. I don't want so much yellow left actually as is showing right now, but I'm just blending a little bit anyways. Yeah, I'll stop there. I'm gonna blend primarily with my green, I think. I'll start along the darkest edge. I want my edge just to be a bit darker, so I think I'll use my darker green to help me get there. Okay, yeah, I want that a little bit bluer still again though, so I'm adding more blue here along to help me spread out that dark green. Just want a little blue, just along the back half of it, of the vine. Alright, so I'll take my yellow and blend that edge a little bit. Just taking my yellow green and softening that edge a little more. I really didn't want quite so much yellow showing, and unfortunately the yellow is just making it like more yellow, so I want a bit more green there, so have sort of this light, very light shade of yellow green. For my little circles here, I will shade them with the lightest color of orange, which is actually kind of pink, but I'll do each of those. And I'm keeping these fairly light, so I think I'm just taking this. So I might change my mind, but for now I'm just taking this and doing like sort of a line around the edge of them. Some of these I'll add just a little bit of a darker orange too. Maybe not all of them. It's definitely the bigger ones though. I'll do a touch of blending on some of the larger ones. Alright, back to these stems that I forgot. They'll be yellow, green, brown. Sort of like the leaves, except just maybe a little bit darker. I just use my lightest and my darkest yellow, followed by my medium yellow green on the edge. I wasn't quite happy with my vines. I feel they need a little bit more contrast. So I'm bringing out my darkest green and going along the edge. And then I'll blend that with one of my yellow greens here, just a little along that edge, not over the whole vine. There, that in fact takes away a little bit of the blueness, but that's okay. I thought it was a little bit too blue there. Just blending the edge a little bit more with my lighter yellow green. I have these sort of divisions. You can leave them, but it's kind of fun to color them. I'm just adding a little bit of, this is sort of a blue, one of my dark blue shades. I'm adding a little bit, like, the blue doesn't show up really well, so I'll add green to maybe to this one can be sort of greens. I don't bring the color all the way to the edge, so there's a little lightness in there. I like that. And I'll just add some more blue to this. A different shade. It's a little lighter, but probably looks a lot alike. But hopefully it's a slightly different effect. Yeah, you might want to blend those just a touch at the edge too. Do that with a little dark green down there too. On some of them, I mean, you can choose how you want to do it. If you want a regular pattern or just a little randomly like me. So, can't help myself, I blend that just a touch. I'm pretty well done, but I like a little bit of color in the background. I've tried leaving these white and it's kind of boring. So I think I'm gonna, yeah, it's gonna be blue I'm using primarily. I've done most of it with the light blue, one of the light blues over the whole theme. So first thing I'm going to do, I know I like to add a little bit darker along the very edges, so I'm going to do that next, just along the edge of the paper. Then I'll take my light blue and I'll blend that edge. It's not super easy to blend this, as you see, but just soften it a little. Just add a little bit more up here at the top. A little bit of a darker shade, and then I'm taking my transparent marker. I'm just doing a little bit more blending to touch up and spread out the blue in places, because when you draw over this big of area and you're trying to keep it light, you'll end up with patches without much color. I hope you have enjoyed this, and I hope you'll give it a try. Please check the link if you want this drawing and the colors I've used. Until then, the next time, enjoy and have a very creative day. Thank you very much.